and welcome. Thank you so much for giving me the time to do this. So I just want to explain to a few people a bit about what you do and find out a bit more about women in different roles, which is what we're doing this month. So what we're going to do is, if you could just explain a little bit about who you are, your background, in terms of where you grew up and where you went to school and things like that, so people get a sense of who you are as a person and where you've come to now.
My name is Diane Abbott. I'm a Member of Parliament. I was first elected in 1987, so I've been a Member of Parliament for 32 years. But when I was first elected, there were no black women Members of Parliament. I was the first black woman Member of Parliament, and there were actually then only 4 black Members of Parliament altogether, myself, Diane Grant, Paul Butang and Keith Ass. Before becoming an MP, I had worked in the media, and I'd also been a city councillor in Westminster Council.
Which part of London were you raised in?
I was born in St Mary's Harrow Road, and I've always lived sort of West London, but as a young child we lived in Paddington, which was then a very West Indian area, very West Indian, Paddington, Notting Hill and so on. It's now been gentrified and it's a little bit different. But then when I was about 4, my father moved to Harrow, and that was seen as very adventurous by his friends. Various said to him, because his name was Reggie, they said, "Reggie, why are you going to live a bush?" Because as far as they were concerned, it was, the ends of the earth. And it was the case that Harrow, 50 years ago, had hardly any BAME people at all. And if I saw a black person or an Asian person for that matter on the street, I'd run home and tell my mother because it was so unusual.
Well, what are the challenges that you found?
Well, in a way, as a young child, you take your environment for granted. But looking back now, I can remember incidents where teachers were actually referencing my colour and actually were marginalising me because of my colour. I remember being in the school choir, primary school choir, and holding my my music sheet a certain way, and the teacher got annoyed with me and she said, "Diane, why do you always have to stand out?" Well, I was just holding this sheet of music, but actually what she was reacting to was this one black girl in the choir.
Yeah, what gave you that drive? Because obviously you went to primary school, it was a bit of a challenge, I suppose, with being different in that school. Then you went on to secondary school, and I believe you went on to University of Cambridge. So what inspired you to do those things?
Well, in a way, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do those things. No one told me a black girl from working class backgrounds couldn't go to grammar school, and in particular couldn't go to Cambridge. So I just went ahead and did it. And I went to grammar school because in those days you had 11 plus, and I passed my 11 plus. Grammar school was interesting, but I remember my first week or so at my grammar school. At primary school, I'd been very good at English, very good at writing essays, and I'd write my essays and they'd pin them up, in the front of the class and so on. So my first week or so in the grammar school, I was, we were sent away to write essays, and I did, and I handed it in, and then the next week the teacher read out the grades. Now I was used to always getting an A or an A plus, whatever, but she read out the grades and she said A plus, A minus, B plus, B. I'm thinking, what's happened to my grade? She goes B minus, C plus, C. And I thought, what has happened to my grade? But she never mentioned my essay. So I sort of put it in my hand and said, what about my essay? And she said, I'll speak to you afterwards. So after the class I went up to her and she held up my essay between her thumb and forefinger and said, "Where did you copy this from?" Now I was shocked, because in primary school people took it for granted I was good at writing essays. No one queried that. And she didn't ask me, she was telling me I'd copied it because she knew, or thought she knew, an 11-year-old black girl couldn't write an essay like that. And my response to that was, for quite some time, not to write as well as I was able to, not to use long words, not to, you know, because I didn't want to be humiliated by that again. And it wasn't until the next year when I had a different English teacher that things looked up and I was able to, you know, work to my potential.
So what advice would you give to another person, whether it's a young person or a person of maturity, that just wants to pursue a career and, you know, is facing challenges or doesn't know, you know, to get that support from or what to do next?
Well, I think nowadays there is much more support available to young people, black young people, but any young person that wants to progress education and progress with their career. And I would say you should take advantage of that support. But I'd also say that you can't take yourself at other people's estimation. I spent all my school career really being judged by people who thought they knew what a young black girl could do or couldn't do. So for instance, when I said to my teacher, I was in the sixth form and I wanted to apply to Cambridge. In those days, to get into Cambridge, you had to sit a special set of exams. You couldn't just do it on the basis of your A levels. And so when I told her I wanted to get into Cambridge, she said to me, again without drawing breath, she said to me, "I don't think you're up to it." So I said, without drawing breath, I said, "But I do, and that's what mattered, isn't it?" So, you know, there were certain pivotal points in my life when I believed in myself, but it was hard. It was hard. And I think it's a little bit easier now. I think there is more support available to people now.
So your experience at Cambridge, because obviously there wasn't many people of colour at all there, let alone women of colour. How did you find that?
Well, at first, I thought, gosh, you made a big mistake here. It's full of posh white girls. I mean, there's no place for you here. But I stuck with it, and in a way, it was helpful to me in later life, because if you've done that thing, you're at Cambridge, you're the only black girl, not just. I mean, in my college, which was Newnham College, it's a collegiate university, so they're different colleges. I was in Newnham College. I think there were about 400 girls, and there were 3 of us. Again, it was really quite isolating, but what it does do is it toughens you up for the future. And I remember when I became a member of Parliament, I had lots and lots of newspaper interviews, and they all said, you know, what made you do this? What made you think you could do this? Blah blah blah. And then one woman, she's a white woman from the Times, and she didn't ask me that. She said, I understand. She said, when you're working class and you go to Cambridge or Oxford for that matter, when you're working class and you go to an elite university, for the rest of your life, you see a hurdle and you take it. And that's been my attitude. It's not that I don't see the hurdles, but I'm always prepared to take them on. You should be prepared to take on challenges. And you know, I've not always succeeded, but I've always been prepared to take on a challenge.
You know, there's 70% of us in the world that are non-white in terms of women, but we don't represent that in regards to the workplace in leadership roles, and especially senior leadership roles. What do you think could be done, or, you know, to actually make that change happen? What do we need to do as a community, as a people?
Well, as a people, we have to sort of apply for these jobs. Sometimes people think, oh, you know, somebody like me, you know, they rule themselves out before they've even tried. So first of all, you've got to try, but also the white people that run these institutions, they need to organise themselves in a way which makes it possible for people to try and set themselves targets for black recruitment, and not just BAME recruitment, but, you know, getting people through the glass ceiling. I think it's quite important to have targets for management as well as for the rest of your employees.
Do you think it's helpful having those targets, and that those targets should be celebrated?
I think having targets is helpful, not just at board level, but at senior management level and middle management level. And sometimes people say, well, I don't want to be the token person, you know, if you have targets. But you know, white men never worry about being the token anybody. They just take it for granted that they should be in leadership positions. So I think it's important to have targets, and it's important that people step up.
Okay, so thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and this advice will be so helpful to many people, and even just being open in this way. So thank you so much, Diane.